And welcome back, everyone, to our virtual backyard field trips here at the St. Augustine Alligator Farm Zoological Park. We are here in our adventure outpost. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our other videos as they do tie into all of our current videos and future videos. Go ahead and make sure you also check out our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date to everything going on here at our park. And welcome back, everyone, to another one of our backyard virtual field trips here at the St. Augustine Alligator Farm Zoological Park. As you can see, we are back into our adventure outpost where we host our zoo camps. If you are still looking for something for your kids to do this summer, we are having camps. We are following all CDC guidelines to ensure the safety of all our participants. If you do have any questions, you can definitely contact our education department. We'll be more than happy to let you know what we are doing to ensure everyone's safety. And if you are looking for something to do this weekend, or maybe during the week while you're still following the stay-at-home guidelines or those social distancing guidelines, the Alligator Farm is in fact open. We are having a reduced capacity, so we're only allowing about 25% of our normal capacity in the park, and we are ensuring that everyone is keeping those social distancing guidelines as they are enjoying our outside facility. As you can see, we are about to talk about some carnivorous plants this week. And you might be wondering why exactly I am holding a snake. Well, I want to get some of our vocabulary words out of the way so we can really dive into what a carnivorous plant is. So that first word, carnivore, carnivorous, what does that mean? It simply means that these animals will eat other animals to sustain their livelihoods. Carnivorous animals can vary from, say, our crocodilians to some of our, wrong side. Can you cut it? Now, carnivores are any animal that has to eat another animal in order to sustain itself. So if you think about our food webs or our food chains, these animals like alligators, even like bald eagles, right, are having to eat other animals, right, to keep them alive. So these are, again, carnivores. Now, when we talk about our carnivorous plants, right, we're going to discuss on how these carnivorous plants not only rely on eating other insects to sustain themselves, but they also rely on something called photosynthesis. Now, for these animals, or for animals that say just eat our plants, do not rely on photosynthesis or do not rely on eating other animals, these are what we're going to call herbivores. Our herbivores are our deer, all right? They are our Anastasia beach mice, as you probably have heard about in our other videos. They are going to be sea turtles. So green sea turtles are herbivores because they strictly rely on eating seagrasses. Right? If you do want to basically learn about some of these other animals, like our sea turtles or Anastasia beach mice, definitely check out our other videos. They are on our YouTube page. They are also on our Facebook page, and you'll really get a full story of how these ecosystems work with all these different animals. Now, if there are animals, say like a nice black bear, that rely on both eating prey, but also they rely on eating berries and vegetation, we're going to call them omnivores. So we, as humans, we are omnivores for the most part. Some of us decide to eat vegetation and have maybe a nice steak, but while other people, maybe they rely more on the herbivore lifestyle if they're, say, vegetarian or vegans. So these animals and these animals really rely on these three different categories to kind of, or how they're placed in our food chains and our food webs. Now, when it comes to our carnivorous plants, we're actually going to go jump over to our director, John Brueggen, and see exactly what these carnivorous plants look like here in our state.
Thanks, Trevor. So we're going to talk about carnivorous plants. Did you even know there was such a thing? I mean, carnivores are things that eat meat. So we know about animals that are carnivores or they're herbivores, but some plants actually eat meat, and they eat it in the form of insects. And there's several different varieties of these, and we tend to think of them as very exotic. It seems like something called a Venus flytrap would be from really far away, but they actually occur right here in the United States. Their native habitat is in some of the bogs and swamps in North Carolina. So there's a few major kinds of carnivorous plants, and this kitchen sink here is filled with several of the varieties. There's a kind called the Venus flytrap that we just mentioned. And the Venus flytrap has these tiny little traps. Oh, that one just closed up. Did you see that? They have little trigger hairs on them, and they're designed specifically to trap flies, like the size of a house fly. And so they have red in there that looks like meat because flies are attracted to rotten meat. And the fly will get in there and get trapped. Now, why would a plant want to eat meat? Well, that's because they grow in areas that have very poor soil, so they don't get fertilizer in the form that we think of naturally in the ground. And so they have to make their own fertilizer by trapping a bug and holding on to it and digesting it. And then what they do is they open back up and they'll just be the husk of that fly. Just the exoskeleton that cannot be digested will be there, and that'll get washed out by the rain later on. There's also these really cool tall plants. These are a type of pitcher plant, and these can be found right here in the United States as well. And the way they trap things is that they have a little bit of nectar here that attracts a bug, and then they have tiny hairs down in their throat that will keep the bug from crawling back out. And so the bugs fall down in here and they start to digest inside the pitcher. And then we also have these really sticky, almost like fly paper plants, and it's really hard to see in here, but the sundews have little tiny droplets that are sticky and sweet, so they're attractive to a bug, but the bug will get stuck to this and not be able to get away. And that's a way that they'll digest, is just by having this bug stuck here for the rest of its life. These are three very different types of plants that all seem exotic, but they can be found right here in the southern United States. We have the sundews and the pitcher plants right here, even in Florida. So there are some places you could go out and find a carnivorous plant in our own backyards.
How'd you get there?
Hey, I'm a magical kind of guy.
Well, I'm glad you're here because we do have some carnivorous plants, and I'm glad you were able to stop on by so we can do a little dissection.
Sure, yeah. I opened up one of these plants earlier, and we got to see even some live bugs that were crawling right out of there. Very cool. But I brought along some other plants here that we can open up and see. So these are all different types of pitcher plants, and they grow tall, and the bugs kind of get trapped down in here. So it's always interesting to see. I know you did a summer camp where kids got to open these up on their own, right?
And so these animals are carnivorous, which means they will digest whatever kind of goes into them. So what kinds of insects or what kinds of animals will they digest?
The beautiful thing is this time of year they pack themselves full of love bugs.
Really?
So people who don't like love bugs, you can really get on board with carnivorous plants.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and open one up.
Yeah, all right, let's see what's in there.
Now, for carnivorous plants, these plants will not necessarily live in super open areas. They are more of like a boggy species, correct?
Yeah, so their roots are usually wet, but they live in soil that's not very healthy for them, so they don't have very good nutrition. They don't get fertilizer, so they trap the bugs for the fertilizer. Oh, there's a part of a bug that just fell out right here. Let's see this whole bottom part.
And so obviously the exoskeleton is left behind.
Yeah, they can't digest the exoskeleton. But see, this whole bottom part of this plant is stuffed full of bug parts. Some of them down towards the bottom have been so digested it's really hard to tell what they are. But I see a moth right here. See his eyes?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a little confused as to maybe what an exoskeleton is, you can definitely check out our other virtual backyard field trips. We have one all on bugs and pollinators, and you'll be able to learn those vocabulary words as you learned about the ones, our carnivorous kind of vocabulary words here today.
We'll cut open another one here and see what we got going on.
Awesome.
So it's mostly insects, but sometimes they get other animals. It's kind of hit or miss.
So you guys are going to definitely want to see this because I think there is a...
Oh yeah,
is that a lizard?
Look at that.
Wow, that's really cool.
There, a lizard.
So that's a whole lizard skeleton.
That's right.
So this lizard obviously went down into the plant thinking maybe that was some kind of safe refuge.
Sure. I've seen them go down there and eat bugs, and they'll keep their back legs up, but this one must have slipped and fell. So that's a great find to be able to see a whole lizard.
Can I take him out?
Sure.
So what is the process of, how does this lizard, when it falls in, how does it, become mummified?
Well, so he obviously he doesn't have much to eat in there, and he can't get back up. Eventually, he's going to die, and anything that's sitting in here is just basically sitting and rotting over time. And as it rots, the juices from the animals or the bugs just seep into the plant and give it the nutrition that it's looking for.
So it feeds the plant, and it's kind of like the whole circle of life.
That's right. Yeah, that'll grow up, and then the plant will grow. A new plant or part of that plant will get bigger and better, and there'll actually be other insects and lizards that feed on that plant and make a living, just like the plant's making a living off of them.
Very cool. And you said earlier there are 3 species that we primarily find here.
There's 3 major kinds. There's actually about 5 major kinds of carnivorous plants. There's some pictures like this, but they hang on vines, and so in Southeast Asia, like in Borneo, they hang off a vine. They're not planted in the ground, and so that's one kind of pitcher plant that's different than our pitcher plant. There's also a little thing called a bladderwort that lives in the water or in the soil, and the carnivorous part is underwater or underground, and you never see it, and it's tiny. And it has these little bubbles that trap microscopic bugs, and it survives underground essentially with just a flower or a little bit of leaf showing above ground.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're really cool. And then there's another one that we didn't mention earlier.
Butterwort.
There's another one that we didn't mention.
Thanks, producer.
There's another one we didn't mention earlier called a butterwort, and it just looks like a nice little flowering leaf, but it has sticky leaves. Not quite like the sundew, they're not as obviously sticky, but tiny little gnats get stuck on there, and the plant does the same thing. It absorbs those juices and uses it as fertilizer.
Awesome. And we have carnivorous plants here at the Alligator Farm, correct?
Yeah, we have a couple pots on display up right as you first come in the park. You can see a few of them.
Do we want to go check those out?
Yeah, let's take a look.
All right, great. And we're here at the entrance of the Alligator Farm, and as you can see, we're right in front of some beautiful carnivorous plants that we have here as a part of our entryway. So we're going to go over what exactly we have here in front of us. So can you tell us a little bit about some of these different plants?
Sure. We've got a few different varieties here. We've mixed it all into what a bog would look like in the wild. It's always wet soil. We've got, right here in front of me is this pitcher plant. So this is one of the ones like we just opened.
Okay.
So this is a white top pitcher. It's got a red throat on it, and it shows a little bit of nectar on the edge, and that's what draws the plants down in there.
Very cool.
And then we have this real slender thing. It almost looks like a blade of grass. And it's the sundew, and it's sticky all along here. It's actually a flower stuck to it and some little tiny gnats that are stuck to it. So the sundew is growing up right amongst the grasses there. And then these beautiful white flowers are part of our Venus flytrap. So
these these plants do still require pollination.
Yeah, so it's interesting. See, the trap is way down here, but the flowers way up here, and that's so that the plant doesn't actually trap its pollinators. So it grows the flowers up here, the bugs can do what they need to do to help benefit the plant, and it'll attract some other type of insect. So it would be a bee pollinating up here and a fly that gets in the trap down here.
That's a pretty fantastic adaptation, I think.
They're amazing.
Very cool. So if you guys are, again, looking for something to do, come on by the Alligator Farm. You can see our beautiful carnivorous plants up here at the front. We are open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. So be sure to stop on by to come see our facility. Again, if you are looking for something for your kids to do during the summer, we will have our zoo camps open and available. You can also find other ways to support the Alligator Farm, such as our GoFundMe pages or our animal adoptions. We really do appreciate everything you all have done for us in these unprecedented times. So thank you again.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
So we'll see you all soon, and be sure to tune in next week for another one of our backyard virtual field trips.